Okay. Should be recording right now. Can you hear me okay?
Yep,
All
I
right.
can.
I can hear you okay as well. So yeah, today we're going to be talking with my friend Philip from Sweden. Uh, Philip is a energetic healer who focuses on removing energy blockages and energy blocks in people. If you are unfamiliar with energy work or energy healing, it basically works on the premise that we all have, chi and energy that flows through our body. Think like Bruce Lee channeling his energy for kung fu in martial arts. And essentially, that when there's blockages, in your body in different places, that it causes illness and pain and disease and all kinds of things within your body. And so he works in that field and works on healing people. I've had it done before. He's done work on me. It's amazing. And we're going to be talking a little bit about the coronavirus situation and how it's affecting, where he's at, where we're at over here in the United States, and just the global implications from a, political, governmental, and even spiritual side. Because we've had conversations where we both agree that there's other things going on at the same time, as this is more than just a health crisis. So, um, anyways, Phil,
Hi.
hey,
Okay, so yeah, when it comes to coronavirus, I mean, yeah, it is simply a virus, but kind of like when Justin was saying that, have you noticed in China, for example, that there's not that many people protesting anymore?
oh yeah,
And when you kind of think of it, it's pretty much this the whole world is pretty much, holed up inside right now. So there's not a whole lot that's going on, generally when it comes to the politics and any other major issues as well. So that's one thing.
mm-hmm.
But something else to think about that, those packaging, the plastic
Yeah.
pop. Yeah, some of that comes from China. So you might not want to pop them.
Yeah, I actually kind of joked around because my birthday was a couple weeks ago, and my family got me these giant confetti cannons that you have to twist, and it shoots the confetti out, and it makes this
Yeah.
pop sound. And they said they were made from China, and I said, "Are you sure you want to pop those?" And my wife looks at me funny, like, "Why?" And I said, "What if they're filled with air from there that might be infected with something?" And she just kind of rolled her eyes because she's used to me. Um, and we did it, and it was fine, and it was pretty cool, and got some interesting pictures. But yeah, I mean, I definitely joked about that. But then come to find out, in all the logistics and the shipping of stuff from like Alibaba and even through Amazon, they're saying like, oh, this thing can survive on cardboard for X amount of time, plastic for 3 days.
Yeah,
So it's like, haha, funny, but not really. It's become a lot more of a serious
yeah,
thing.
it is. But yeah, and that's the thing. Most people actually don't think about like the shipping part because everything doesn't take that long nowadays to ship, either across the country or even across the seas.
Right.
So there's so many things. Like for example, if we go back in well, I don't know 20, 30 years, if you remember the ads on the TV for Chiquita bananas.
Uh huh.
Now, those bananas usually had more flavor, more smell to them, and aroma, so to speak. And
Mm-hmm.
there's like, those bananas are gone. So what
Right.
happened? Well, there was a virus going on because um, when it comes to that banana that we eat, those are actually clones of a certain, how should we say, of the plant itself.
Mm-hmm.
There are no seeds. So if one tree gets attacked, every other gets attacked as well.
Mm-hmm.
So the virus came from Asia to both to the US, South America, and a couple of other places, which pretty much destroyed that, how should I say, that strand
Mm-hmm.
of bananas, and it's gone forever.
Hmm. I didn't know that. That makes sense, though.
Yeah.
That's why they have emergency seed stores and stuff, right? Where they like stockpile like seeds
Oh yeah.
for every kind of food that you can imagine, is
Yeah.
so that if this kind of thing happens, that they do have the ability to sort of bring it back or at least recreate the food supply.
Yeah. And the largest one is in Norway because of the cold weather. So
Hmm.
they don't actually have to use that much, spend that much money on or energy into cooling everything down. So,
Hmm. I did not
but
know
yeah,
that. That's cool.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, so I mean, it's becoming like a very serious thing. But one of the things that you know, one of the things that I think is really interesting, that I read the other day. There's a guy on Twitter named Naval, Naval. He's very insightful. Posts a lot of really cool stuff. And one of the things that he said is this is the first time in recorded human history where the entire world is focused on fixing one problem. And
yeah,
I read that and I thought about it because immediately, your brain tries to go back to like, oh no, there has to be other things that have happened where we focused on things like this, right? No, not that I can remember. Even 9/11 that happened over here in the States and more like focused on terrorism globally is not something that really we've worked together to stamp out. It's countries that have focused on their individual countries. They're not really collectively trying to make it better. But it's interesting because I do think that um, one of the bigger reasons why this is happening is that it's going to force us to realize like, hey, okay, cool, we worked together, we found a cure for this. Now let's address the food issue globally. Now let's address the clean water issue globally. Like, if we get scientists and we get medical professionals and all these people across the globe communicating together. I mean, we have the internet, for God's sakes. If we get them communicating together, what can they create together to solve problems so that we can sort of have like a, I think we're going to have sort of like a Manhattan project when it comes to health. And I bet you see the lifespan of people jump up another 15, 20 years here in the near future because of this, if we actually make that choice to cooperate and put it to good use. I think that's part of the lesson that we're learning with this virus is it's going to uncover and show us a lot of flaws in our system, a lot of flaws in the way that our environment is, things like that. And after this, it's a choice to go back to the way it was before, or it's a decision to work together. So it's really a choice between cooperation or destruction in a way.
yeah, I agree. However, what we do need is momentum to get this started really quick, to actually force countries to talk about these issues, because otherwise there's a good possibility that everyone will try to go back to normal, what
Mm,
was before, and was like, oh shit, we have to deal with this stuff, in our own backyard,
right.
rather than starting to find real solutions. And if we can also get people to, I mean, in like medical professions and everywhere else, to ignore politicians,
Right.
ignore certain laws and rules. I'm not saying to be completely lawless and, no, no, but things that are preventing you from international cooperation like this,
Right.
because this is so much bigger than anyone has actually ever thought that it could be. And if you have a national cooperation working together to a common goal, then you can achieve pretty much anything, and with so much little effort and time.
Mm-hmm.
And but because everything else has to be monetized, there's large corporations banking on things, then everything just gets held back, and you no longer have a solution. You have just frustration because everything takes time. People are dying, because corporations don't see people as another human being. They see as a number, as
Right.
a cash cow, something that they can actually, like a customer,
Mm-hmm.
where they pretty much take money from you. But if we can ignore that and just head straight for just building solutions to the problems, then we might actually have quite a bright future in front of us.
Yeah, I think we'll see us move towards a mindset of cooperation over competition. Healthy competition, like in a true free market, I think is a good thing. Where it turns into bad is not because the system is flawed per se, but that the people are flawed and that they're greedy, essentially. But competition, healthy competition, so that you can come up with new innovative solutions to things, I think is good. I just think that it's going to steer towards a more cooperative way of doing things. So like, the difference is like, look at the UN, right? I think the UN's original purposes was, trying to accomplish some of those things as far as uniting everybody across the globe and things like that. But
Yeah.
the flaw with it is that it was created by governments saying we need to come together and do these things, and it won't work, I think, as long as the governments are the way that they are, and that they're the ones driving it. It has to be us that drives it. When people decide, no, we need to work together globally, that's when it's going to change. Because I mean, to be honest with you, my personal experience, pretty much everything that the government gets involved is a clusterfuck.
I agree. And
So
also something that else that you actually have with government is that people who are usually, running everything, well, I mean, their egos are usually the size of Texas.
hmm
And say something, do something that just has potential to bruise their egos, and it's done. It's
yeah,
just they will just stop and they will, turn on you. And it doesn't matter what. It doesn't matter how much you have actually helped them in the past. Just one thing and it's done.
yeah,
So we need people who can actually, who are pretty much selfless
yeah,
and who don't actually have that kind of ego to begin with. So they cannot actually get bruised that easily and who are actually there for,
for the right
to
reasons.
work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
hmm
For work towards something good for everyone. When it comes to politicians, there are very few of them around. I mean, it is changing, but the change is too slow.
Yeah, it is. But I do see that happening, like in the States, for example. I know there's a lot of people who are running for office who never, they don't come from a political background. It's very much like back to the roots of America's, founding fathers, where they worked in private business. They know they have expertise in certain areas. They're trying to get into office, like, say a farmer is trying to get into the agriculture office, at some
Yeah.
political position, to go in and serve his time, and then leave and go back to that farm. And you're seeing more of that over here in our country, is people stepping up and saying we're tired of the corruption, we're tired of the slow roll, so that we can be drained of tax dollars. We're tired of nothing ever getting done, and so now we're going to run. We're going to take the country back, kind of thing. And it's pretty interesting. And I will say that the one thing with this virus is that I mean, if you look on Facebook, you would never know this, right? But generally speaking, regardless of your political affiliation, regardless of your uh, race, color, creed, gender, country, whatever, this virus does not care, and it does not discriminate, and it is bringing people together in a way. At least I know around me. There's people who I haven't talked to in years because of differencing opinions on certain things, that now all of a sudden are kind of like, man, this is really crazy. Like, if you guys need anything, reach out to me. I have extra this, or we're doing the same. Hey, we have extra that, whatever. And so yeah, it's sort of like tearing down some of those barriers in between.
Yeah.
And it's almost like, I find it interesting, but it's almost forcing us to go back to like a tribalism kind of mentality, where communities, neighborhoods, families are really buckling down and like sticking with each other. And
Yeah.
some of the outside influences are not as present. So I don't know. It's definitely interesting what's going on right now.
I mean, I can tell you here in Sweden, for example, that people are extremely tired of the government because they're not just incompetent, but they're pretty much useless,
Yeah.
to say at least. because I mean, when Italy was during the quarantine, and Norway and a few other places, Sweden went like, "Yeah, we're fine." I was like, "No, we're not fine." Like shut down the schools, shut down, the kindergartens
Right.
and everywhere else where there's a big gathering. And they went like, "Nah, we're fine. Just wash your hands a little bit better."
Right.
It's like, wait, what? And it was like the inefficiency is so prominent now, and people are, really getting so tired of it. Because here in Europe, I mean, I'm going to say, okay, it is a little bit touchy subject when it comes to the immigration,
Right.
but it's not the immigration from regular countries, but from the Middle East and Africa.
Mhm.
Those guys, a lot of them are coming here because of the financial benefits they get once they're actually here,
Really.
and not because of the actual war
Mhm.
and stuff like that. And it was like, why is it that it's mainly younger men who are coming here?
Mhm.
Where are the women? Where are the families? Why is this happening? And of course, if you bring that up, the government says like directly, like, "Oh, you're racist."
Right.
No, we're not. We're just asking the right questions.
Yeah.
And if there's a war in a certain place, why can't we go there and help them there
Right. Right.
rather than having people walk or travel across half the world to get to us?
Right.
Now, at the same time, you also are getting something else. Like, for example, with the coronavirus, nobody is actually talking like um, those refugees. Who did actually somebody tell them about coronavirus? Is anyone doing anything about that? I
Right.
mean, if they're sick, can you prevent further spread of the virus with the refugees?
I think that's what's happening in like California, New York, Seattle, Washington, over here in the States, as well as Italy. I have family in Italy, and those are the places, at least in the United States, those three places, the places that are the worst. Those are also the three places where they've taken in the most amount of not misplaced, displaced, migrants and things like that. And
Yeah.
I'm not, not saying they're the cause of it by any means, but there's probably
No, no.
some correlation because the healthcare and things is not great and over there and and it's kind of like the other thing is there's a lot of like homelessness. There's a lot of burden put on the healthcare systems locally there and everything else and I definitely think there's correlations there. But in Italy, it's pretty scary. My family, they're worried about getting separated from their kids or their parents because the quarantine just keeps getting like tighter and tighter as far as the radius of, hey, it's down to 10 people. Now it's down to 5 people. Now do they start separating people by age? Do they
Yeah.
start, stamping their hands so that they're allowed on the street or not on the, there's a lot of parallels there from that to, what happened over in Germany that my cousins were making. And
Yeah.
it's scary, they're looking at like 3 months of preparation. That she was telling me that it's already been bad there for 4 weeks, and
Yeah.
they're talking about needing 3 months of supplies and stuff like that. And I think that at least over here, I think that we're in pretty good shape because we acted fairly early. Even though the testing could get better, the amount of testing kits need to be more. I do
Yeah.
think that we sort of self-censored early enough that it should help contain it to a reasonable level. I hope, but I don't know. I mean, as we sit here broadcasting from the beautiful Quarantine, Ohio, um, I don't know. It's definitely interesting, and even going out today in the stores. Today was the first time we went out, and the stores actually seemed to have a pretty good amount of everything in it, except for toilet paper. Everybody cleaned out the toilet paper again. But I
You
guess over.
guys need to. I mean, you guys need to find out a way to use the bum gun.
Did you say
The
the
the one,
bum gun?
yeah, the one in Thailand.
Like the bidet?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I
Except it's not a separate thing. It's actually connected to your toilet,
right, right.
and you do have the what's called the handle, next to the toilet
Yeah,
seat. So
they have fancy ones where you can adjust the temperature and the amount of pressure and spray, and
yeah,
that's going to be Squatty Potty's next invention, and will be some kind of like super marketable bidet attachment that already exists,
or
mind you. But
or just get Japanese toilet seats.
yeah, that too. I've never
I mean,
experienced one myself,
me neither.
but it
Not sure
is
I want to
interesting.
either.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to either, but like, but yeah, I mean, places that have bidets, it's not really an issue, right?
Yeah,
So, but yeah, everyone's freaking out and buying toilet paper. But like, we went and we got some extra frozen food and things like that. But like everybody was very nice. Everybody was very calm. The general like energy in the grocery store was not one of panic for the first time in a while.
yeah,
And everybody was kind of just, hey, we're just. It was almost like we just went and got normal groceries. We just bought a little extra of a couple frozen things.
yeah.
Um.
I
So.
think the initial shock and the panic has subsided a little bit,
Mhm.
I guess.
It's gonna come
So
in
people
waves
are,
though. Like
yeah,
if they shut down more stuff here like we consider to be vital. Where I live is a very very big tourist area, and a lot of the service businesses are closed. But when we start to get another month from now, when the majority of this town makes their money, and all of a
yeah,
sudden they're not making money, that's gonna send people into a pretty big panic, I think.
yeah.
But I mean, hopefully it blows over. The thing that's cool, the other thing with Italy, I don't. You probably have seen the pictures and stuff. My cousins were sending me things, but they said the Venice Canal, the water is perfectly clear. There's like fish. I saw articles online where like swans returned and dolphins appeared, and there was
Yeah.
like boars running down the street, like just running around, like super excited because there's nothing there. Um,
And not only that, but I mean, everything gets cleaner all of a sudden. The nature had chance to come back a little bit. And they shown, for example, what was happening in China
mhm,
for several weeks now. Everything was shut down. Unfortunately, now they're ramping up the factories again.
right.
And it seems that they are going like 120% now.
Yep.
So it is getting bad once again
Right.
in China, but hopefully everywhere else, it won't be such a big shock.
Yeah.
So,
It's interesting you say that because so this virus is dealing like major blows to both globalism, and when I say that, I'm talking about like global trade, global
yeah,
anything, right? Open borders. I mean, all the borders are shut down. No one's allowed to go anywhere. Just in time inventory is fucked. Gun control, the discussion of should you have guns, should you not have guns, whatever. The first thing everybody did over here is go out and buy a bunch of guns because they're nervous that people might try to break into their house and steal their toilet paper. Um,
yeah,
and even global supply chains. I know over here in the States, we now people realize how dependent we are on other countries for our stuff, and that we've become a consumer and not a manufacturer. And that's changing though. And it's they're starting to manufacture things. In fact, the president just put out an order. I can't remember what it's called right now, but basically the government has the authority to tell manufacturing businesses like you need to fill government orders first. So if that's for medical masks, make medical masks. If there are businesses that were shut down who used to make medical supplies, they're ramping them back up and getting them to make stuff. And so, that's going to help us here long term when things come back up. But, the other side of that is just, I think, the family bonding, the marital bonding, the community bonding, and think about it. So like some of the people that I work with in my business, right, because of the social media marketing that I do,
yep,
they work 50 to 80 hours a week sometimes because of being in sales and in retail and that kind of stuff. Now they're forced to be home and they're closed, and they're
yeah,
panicked a little because of everything going on, but it's forcing people to focus on what's important. And I think a lot of what's going to happen when this stuff lifts is you're going to have people like realizing like, you know what, it's okay if I work less hours and I make a little bit less because I can spend more time focusing on my family, which is how it should be. Like I almost feel like it's forcing people to figure out a way to have a work-life balance.
I agree. I mean, there's several jokes online like, "Oh, I was, I'm in quarantine and I work from home, and today I had to speak with my family. They seem to be nice."
All right. Yeah,
It's like, yeah,
it's fun. I mean, um, I'm around my family quite a bit, but not quite in the way that we are now. And it's presented, small challenges or what have you, nothing major. But when you're stuck like this, you can't really get like a break from each other. And that's the tough thing. It is forcing you to deal with, whatever issues you may have with between you and your kids or between you and your spouse or between you and your parents, whatever. It really like puts them forefront and is like, yeah, you're gonna deal with this shit right now, whether you like it or not. And it's gonna keep coming up until you deal with it. And so, yeah, I mean, that's caused a little bit of discomfort here and there for us, but not a ton. And I mean, dude, we went to the store today, right? Like I said, to get groceries.
yep.
We went down the board game aisle. Number one, we went down a board game aisle. Who does that anymore? Secondly, we actually bought fucking board games. Okay.
Okay.
Thirdly, there was like 7 or 8 other families in there. I got a message on my phone from somebody who we haven't talked to in a long time that said, "Hey, do you guys want to do a puzzle challenge?" And I'm like, "What the hell is a puzzle challenge?" And it was like, "Next time we go to the store, we'll get 2 puzzles, one for us, one for your family. We'll drop it off on your front porch because social distancing, and then we'll start them at the same time and see who finishes them first." And I like, part of me was kind of like, "What?" And the other part of me was like, "Dude, we're about to throw down and beat your ass in some puzzle making." You know what I mean? Um, but we
Yeah.
we bought Monopoly and we bought Operation. Operation we got because the kids have never played it, and
Okay.
you know this, Philip knows this because we're friends. But I have a child that has high functioning autism. He's 19. It's hard for him to stay present, and I had this bit of information that just like came to me the other day of, it would be a great board game to make him be present would be Operation, because you have to focus and hold those damn tweezers and really pay attention and be careful, otherwise you get buzzed on the side, and it would force him to be present in that moment, in that second, to pull out whatever needs pulled out of the Operation dude. So I thought that would be a really good game to get. So we got it, put the batteries in, and found out that it lights up when you touch the sides, but the buzzer is broken.
Oh,
I'm like, damn it. So we got to take it back. But my point is, we bought board games. Like,
yeah.
we're a family that has board games anyways, but we don't play them very often. But like, there was 7 or 8 families in the board game aisle buying board games. And
Yeah.
they all have video games too, like we do. We all have video games. We play video games, whatever. But people are actually like, let's go outside and play basketball. Let's play board games. Let's sit down and play cards. Like, a lot of families do that stuff. We're not one of the families that does it often enough. And I think that's changing. Like, people are like, oh, I can actually do things with my family the way that we did back in like the 40s and actually have fun.
Yeah. I have a question for you.
What's up?
Uh, Monopoly.
Mhm.
What were you thinking?
I don't know. Um, I tend to, I don't get like heated over Monopoly at all.
Yeah, you
Um,
have 3 other people who might.
yeah, my wife is a bit of a baron when it comes to Monopoly. Like in a past life or something, she must have been like some like real estate mogul who is like just ruthless, because she like is always trying to angle to get every single property on one side of the board and just laughs hysterically every time you land on anything. It's evil. It's really kind of evil, to be honest. I just don't really
Okay.
care. I don't really care. I like to get like Park Place and a Boardwalk if I can, and slam hotels on those, and just sit there and be patient. But or the railroads.
What
The
about,
railroads are always good.
yeah, what about Logan and Aiden?
They're very competitive. Logan's very competitive because he's a sports guy, so he likes to try to win. But Aiden just doesn't like to lose. Like, it's not necessarily that he's competitive per se.
Hmm.
He just doesn't like losing. So, but they do pretty good. I mean, we've played games and they've been pretty fine for the most part. So, and Aiden has like the best RNG. He has like the best luck of any kid I've ever met in my life. Like, He's the guy that, like, if you get him scratch off tickets for Christmas or something, he in his stocking, he wins. If he's playing Dungeons and Dragons and you have to roll a 20 to get the maximum whatever, he rolls the 20 like 80% of the time. Like the kid has crazy luck. Um so yeah, I mean, pretty much I think I don't mind playing board games with my family because I'm the one that loses most often and I just don't care. But yeah, my one son, Logan, and my wife are very, very competitive, very competitive. So
You know, the official version is I let them win.
yeah, well, of course. But see,
Yeah,
they're gonna listen to this later, and I can't let all the tricks out of the bag.
exactly.
But
Yeah.
the other thing I thought was interesting too a little bit. I don't know if you saw this, but did you see that what the hell was it? Medical valves? Did you see those people who like
Oh
brought a
yeah.
3D printer in and were trying to print medical parts, and the company who makes them for, did you know they're $11,000 per valve?
Whoa.
Like if you
What?
the hospital that buys them from whatever business said that they were going to sue these guys for 3D printing medical valves, the hospital
Yeah.
pays $11,000 per valve.
Jeez Louise.
I don't think they're
Now,
going to make, but I don't think they'll make it through that lawsuit. If they sue those people, I think the community outrage would be astronomically high.
it has to be. It has to be because let's face it, the medical system in the US is pretty much made for the insurance, companies and pretty much medical companies and others
Mm-hmm.
that they can charge anything and they do charge anything
They do.
and people get bankrupt because of the medical bills.
Yep.
And it's insane because this is something that it should be like, I don't know, for example, in Sweden there is a there's a one certain amount of cost for example for the medicine, and for example I think it's like 250 or $300.
Mm-hmm.
Up to that point you pay up to $300, you pay your own medicine,
Yeah.
but everything above that it gets subsidized, what's it called,
Subsidized.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
by the government,
Yeah.
and you don't have to pay for a dime. But then again, I mean, we do pay a hell of a lot more taxes than other countries, but still, we do have this stuff. So, for example, when I had a kidney stone and I had to be laid in a hospital, they pretty much scheduled a operation, the day after. But
Mm-hmm.
still, I mean, they did three CT scans. There was a transport between hospitals,
Mm-hmm.
hospital room, and everything else, including 2 meals, consultation, and a few other things.
Mm-hmm.
For everything now, outside of everything that was paid by the taxes, but everything that came to in the bill that I had to pay was $20.
Wow. Yeah, it's definitely not like that here. I mean, something, it's a societal problem, I think, and obviously the way that the system is currently designed. But I read somewhere once, I don't remember if it was in like tribal times or what the situation was. I think it was. Back in the day, I guess, uh, people paid the doctor based off of being healthy, not being sick. And what I mean by that is, so like, okay, you have your tribe. Let's say there's 100 people. You have your medicine
Yeah,
person. The medicine person would go around and check on everybody, go to each house, make a visit, whatever, and check on everybody, make sure they're okay. Do you need anything? Are you good? Whatever, blah, 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 blah. If they were, and people would say, nope, I'm really good. Thank you. I appreciate you. Here's this orange. Here's this money. Here's this trinket, whatever it is. Um,
yeah,
Thank you. Here you go. Like, thank you for keeping me healthy. If you were sick, you didn't pay them. Like, you paid them only when you're healthy. So the
yeah,
incentive was to keep you healthy so that they can continue to get paid instead of the other way around. And the way that our system is obviously built, and most of the world's is built, is they have incentive to keep you on the hook and keep you having symptoms and keep giving you medicine and not really truly making it better. There's not a lot of preventative stuff out there. There is now, I guess. There's more focus on preventative, but not really. not in the way that I just mentioned. And so I think it's shifting, but it's really a societal problem, and that's the thing. You hear about all these powerful speeches in history about people having the power and the consumer having the power. And it's absolutely true. I mean, all it would take it would be for enough people globally to rise up and say this is not acceptable anymore, and they would have no choice but to change it. But we're not there yet, and maybe some of these kind of things that are happening are going to cause that, to become a reality.
I'm not sure if it was a state in the US or if it was a city,
Hmm.
but one of the places they pretty much said like the insulin cannot cost above a certain amount of money.
Right.
There's a price roof, and price ceiling actually. Sorry,
Mm-hmm.
price ceiling, and above that it's a no go. It has
Mm-hmm.
to be free. After that, I think it was set to $500. I think
Yeah.
so. I mean, because certain places were like charging, like extortion, extortionate money,
Yeah.
uh, just to get insulin, and
Mm-hmm.
that is something that you actually need to survive.
Right.
So diabetics were like really getting into bad places. So local politicians went like, no, we're going to change this. And all of a sudden, like, no, we're putting a price ceiling on this one, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently, the medical companies, they went like, okay, fine, because they don't want to lose money at all. Because it was like, we still get to, get some money off these guys. So yeah, we're going to go there.
Mm-hmm.
And if all of the states would actually start doing this stuff, you might actually get a little bit better, how should we say, incentive to
Mm-hmm.
get better quality stuff
I
for
think
lower
you're right.
prices.
Yeah.
And I mean, that is at least one step in the right direction.
Yeah.
I mean, it still takes a lot longer to actually, you know, recreate a different, to switch to a different system, but, it would be a hell of a lot easier.
Well, the other thing that they need to do too, and recently our president has been doing this a bit, is trying to remove all the red tape that he can, um,
Yeah.
to get things to market, like even the cures for this coronavirus stuff. The FDA is like, it might take like 3-4 months to approve this, and he's like, you need to get it out there now.
Yeah.
Like, screw the FDA. You know, this is what
I
we
mean,
know. It's used for these other things. Yes, it hasn't been cleared for this thing in particular, but like we need to try it. And so
yeah.
like they call it the right to try over here. So they're
Yeah.
trying to push the right to try, which is like, hey, I'm really sick. I might be dying. You have a cure, but you don't know if it actually will work or not. I'm willing to sign a thing that waives you of all responsibility because I want to try this. And if it fixes me, fantastic. And if I die from it, I'm okay with that. I just literally am at that point where like I'm rolling the dice.
Yeah.
And they're trying to do that. And if they do that and people push for that, like you should have the right to try what you want. I do think that that will speed up some of the approvals and things because that's what it is. It's tied up in all this political and bureaucratical bullshit because they're afraid of getting sued. I think.
Yeah.
And they want to make
All
sure it doesn't hurt anybody, but no one's the same. Like the amount of information you have to gather to make a universal drug that you say is safe for anyone to take has to be like literally years and years and years of data and trials, years.
Yeah.
So it just slows down. That's why I was talking about the Manhattan Project for medicine earlier. That's one of the things
Mhm.
that Naval said was, he looks forward to that, happening, and he thinks that will happen. And I tend to agree that we're at a point now where if we can, create a cure for something that's a pandemic across the globe in 3 weeks, there's no reason why we can't cure other shit. There's tons of
Yep.
things that have been around for decades that we could have cured by now. In all likelihood, there probably are cures out there. I'm not trying to get all conspiracy, but there probably are cures out there, and they just have not been allowed to get out, or pushed out to market and things because there's too much of a business in making money off of sick people.
I offer a alternative, theory.
What's that?
If this quarantine continues, I think that most parents will gather together and create a coronavirus vaccine before scientists do.
Really?
Well, I mean, they're stuck with their kids. What do you think?
Is it? Wait. The cure to coronavirus is an Xbox? Because
Doubtful.
my kids are trying to convince me to buy them more games. So I mean, I just assumed that maybe that was the cure, you know?
Yeah, but your wife pretty much says it differently. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yikes.
Oh, also, another thing, you know the ads where they say like 9 out of 10 dentists recommend the toothpaste?
Right?
You should always go for the 10th one because if he doesn't recommend that one, then he doesn't want to actually, more customers.
Right.
So you pretty much go like, "Hey, what do you recommend?"
Right.
So
Right. You know, what's interesting, because, talking about developing drugs that are more generic and work for everybody, because of the coronavirus, okay?
yeah.
Uh, is it safe to assume that we have a collective immune system as a species as well as an individual one?
Well, I mean, as a human species, we do have a certain DNA, and it falls in variance of what 0.5%, I think, or was it zero point 0.2? Zero point 0.2, I think.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, say it's 0.2% variation between from from one side to another that you're being called a human being. So yeah, you can actually have a generic one that is for 100%
Mm-hmm.
within that variation.
Right.
However, when it comes to a specific thing inside of those 0.2%, then it gets a little bit more tricky.
Mm-hmm.
For example, cancer, when you actually have one certain type of cancer, then yeah, sure, you can actually focus on it because it's not on DNA specific, but it could be. But still, it's on the generic side because I mean, you do have a certain set of chromosomes and certain proteins and everything else that's pretty much same with everyone. And as long as you can actually focus on that part, then yeah, you can actually have um, one generic thing for everyone. But it's the variations that gets to you,
Right.
where it gets a little bit more specialized,
Yeah.
like certain flu, for example, or you know, what else can we actually have? Ebola is also quite generic. Well, there are quite few. For example, lupus.
Right.
If it works for one person, it doesn't work for the other. Same thing with the MS as well.
Mm-hmm.
You pretty much have to go. You can get up to 95% of things, but the last 5% is it's quite difficult because then you actually have to go on the individual level. So yeah, I mean, everything depends. Like certain viruses and bacteria that's out there, it is quite generic. It just infects human beings, as a human as a species. So it's easier to combat. But yeah, there's some nasty stuff that goes to the parts of DNA that is not general.
Right. So I want to talk a little bit more about the, I guess we talked about the impact of this virus on systems and families and reaction to it, even the healthcare system and stuff. I want to switch gears a little bit and just touch lastly on the spiritual side of things, and what I mean by that. So I'm going to assume if you're listening, you need to know that I and Philip both believe in reincarnation. And so, that being said, that gives you some context into what we're about to say. Um, but I believe that this virus, although it's doing these other physical things in front of us and bringing people together and creating people to work together and like all this things, that there is sort of a spiritual implication to it as well. And um, it's basically that the earth is obviously trying to heal itself a little bit as well during this time. And I don't think that it's trying to heal itself because it needs to be healed, as in it's in danger. The earth is very resilient. It was here long before us. It would be here long after us if we wipe out. It comes back rather quickly. It's not that. It's that it's healing itself to show us and to teach us that that we can live in cooperation with it and that we should. And but I think that the energy and the the vibration, if you will, of the earth is shifting into one of more cooperation, more love, more coexistence. And there's people who are very rigid, and there's ways of thinking that are very rigid that are not just not about that. They'll never adapt to it. They'll never be okay with it. They just don't want anything to do with it. Like, I like the way things were. I came up in that energy, that old energy of the way things were. And I think, unfortunately, that a lot of the people who are stuck in that mindset of the old and unwilling to adapt to the new are probably not going to make it.
I agree. Um, I can actually paint a picture. It's kind of like a dog who has fleas, and the fleas are biting the dog a little bit too much. So the dog pretty much, tries to scratch them off and, get them off themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, Earth is doing pretty much the same thing because a lot of people are stuck in an energy that is actually harmful for everyone else. Because if we take a look at, say, last 150 years, technological progress of people, or should I say humanity itself as a race. I mean, we went from horse and carriage to, dynamite, to electricity, to cars, oil, the combustion engines, and well, pretty much everything until today. And we've increased the pace that we live in, but at the same time, we also increase the pace that we are destroying everything around us. And because of this destruction, we are more and more, we moved so far away from the nature. Because, I mean, if we take a look at New York City, it's like, what, 8 million people crammed into that little space. I think London is roughly 6 or 7, I think, as well. I mean, that's a concrete place that we created on such a small space,
Mm-hmm.
crammed everything together. There's so much traffic and everything else. And all of a sudden, we have these stressful energies that are, how should I say, they lock some other things into the place. And all of a sudden, you don't actually have movement. You just get heavier and heavier energies. And that weighs down on the earth because, I mean, earth is a living being.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you like it or not, there is a consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, let's like this. I mean, scientists did prove this. So everything that we know in this universe is created by energy. And so, for example, if somebody tells you, like, oh, I don't feel energies, well, slap them. That is impact energy.
Uh.
Yell at them. Well, that's sonic energy. And fake to punch them, but you don't. And if they blink, well, how did they know that something was going to hurt them? Well, that is photonic energy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Also, hunger, that's energy too.
Right.
So, I mean, if you come to a certain place, you feel the energy of that place. Like, oh, it's warm, it's cozy, it's open, it's light. Or like, geez, this place gives me, shivers, and it's like creepy and stuff like that. It's like, oh, I don't like it here. It's cold.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that is energy. And we feel pretty much sometimes in our own homes, just going from room to room. Also, depending on what we have seen on the television. For example, um, if somebody was watching a horror film or a thriller or something like that, and you come into that room, you feel that energy because they were giving off that energy while watching the television.
Mm-hmm.
So all of that gets, all of those heavy energies, they go downwards and they just create like a crust. And, you know, these people who are stuck in the old energies, they kind of like feed off that and difficult energy, and they continue to amplify it, and it just keeps going in a circle, like in a hamster wheel. They're not moving forward because they are unable to,
Yeah.
because they are so comfortable in their role. Um, and when it comes to these roles, it's kind of like a person that is comfortable being sick. It That person has an illness, and it just whenever you see this person, the person just talks about its illness constantly, and it's just it. There's nothing else. There's no like, what movie have you seen? Have you gone somewhere? No, they just talk about their illness because they become uh, illness personified, and they just keep amplifying that energy over and over again. So, yeah, I mean, we need to start healing the certain areas of this planet because of this so much bad stuff that has created a crust. But at the same time, Earth is removing a lot of amplifiers. So, yeah, I mean, I can safely say that I wouldn't mind seeing a couple of politicians go because they amplify so much negativity in this world that it's not even funny.
Yeah.
I mean, whenever you see them on a television, you actually feel their energy, and you just go, boo.
Mm-hmm.
Which is also a reason why I actually don't watch television anymore. But I do still read, papers and a few other things just to, keep track what's going on in the world,
Mm-hmm.
because it's that part is still, important,
Right.
like this coronavirus and stuff like that. But I don't actually listen that much to direct, interactions with people like that. So yeah.
Yeah. You were talking earlier about just energy that makes you feel warm or cold or whatever. And I was literally thinking, as you were saying that, I was thinking, well, I know the energy from this whiskey I've been drinking for the last 50 minutes is starting to make me feel pretty warm. So
Yep.
that's good.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. I definitely think I definitely think that's going down. I think the challenge here is going to be, it's like a free will thing, right? Is
Yep.
okay, the earth is going to remove as much of the bad juju as it can, and people who aren't willing to sort of coexist in a peaceful way with it, and each other for that matter. And it's not going to be something that happens in a couple months, but it's definitely going to happen. And the ability to move forward from a centric place of love for each other and for the planet is going to be a choice that every person, every country, every community is going to have to make. And there's really no reason, there's really no excuse for us not to be better at this point, unless it is by choice, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Um, I think that there's enough intelligent, collective people in the world to be able to tackle damn near anything that we want to deal with, and turn it around, and not spend as much time arguing over how to go about doing it. So, sometimes the best way to go about it is the thing that keeps us from making progress. Is no one can agree on a way to move forward with it, when in fact uh, sometimes you just need to start doing it and adapt as you go. I mean, case in point, this podcast today, we had a very rough idea of what we were going to talk about, and the idea was to just start going with it. And once we start going with it, it would just flow the way that it's meant to flow. And anybody who is listening to this, if you want to actually accomplish things truly, and you have a hard time accomplish things, take imperfect actions and don't worry about perfect inaction. If you spend all your time thinking about how perfect this needs to be, and I need to have like a outline of exactly how we're going to do this, and blah 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 blah, most times you won't do anything because it's too stressful to try to plan out, and it's too overwhelming. So sometimes you just got to kind of trust your gut and just go with it and see what happens.
Also, be brave enough to suck at something new.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. I feel like the overall tone of everything in our conversation flowed really well for the first one. I think that God, I mean, I've heard a lot worse. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know if it's the whiskey chakra that has been helping me, or what, but I didn't feel nervous. I felt very comfortable. And I definitely appreciate all the insight that you have, and both, right now and just personally. I talk to Philip every single day, and he's done a lot of amazing energy work stuff on my family, and me, and it's really cool. It helps a ton, and we just have really good conversations. So, at the end of this podcast, I will end up putting in the description some information if Philip would like, where you could reach out to him if you want energy healing or anything like that. I don't know that you don't have a website yet, do you?
No, it's there's an outline, but everything else is still work in progress.
Yeah, so whatever's available, I'll definitely put in there. And at some point, when you do get things up, I can always go back
Yeah,
and just kind of update it. But this won't be the first or the last time. Well, I guess it was the first, but you get what I'm saying. It won't be
yeah,
the last time that you certainly join me or other people on here for conversation. So yeah, no, I appreciate your insights, and I think you're spot on. And I think we should like circle back around in a couple weeks and just see how things have changed, if we're seeing that change, and sort of touch on this stuff again, if that's okay with you.
yeah, definitely.
Awesome.
Thank you as well.
Yeah, awesome. So yeah, if anybody has any questions or comments or anything like that, wherever you're listening to this, feel free to respond. You'll definitely be able to find social media links and things like that in the description, and we'll do our best to answer it. So thank you for listening, and we will see you next time.
Bye bye.